Hello, Falava. My name is Eddie Williams. I'm two-time Australia's Strongest Man. I've been on Australia's Got Talent. I've been on America's Got Talent, and I also hold a Guinness World Record for pulling a tank. How are you connected to MCBC? So back in high school, a few of my friends used to go to Baptist youth group on a Friday, and I was like, man, I got to tag along. And I started going, and I fell in love with um, the worship. I fell in love with the youth group and just the culture. Just to being at church and just having like a fun group to hang out with on a Friday and a Sunday. And I learnt a lot as a young boy. A lot about God's ways, and you know that you can have a relationship with God. I never saw it like that growing up in my household. It was quite strict, but it was awesome being able to find a youth group on a Friday night to go to, and then eventually I started going to the Sunday night services, and I did a few um, team like singing with Caleb on a Sunday, and yeah, playing with the youth, playing with the church band, and just singing BVs. It was awesome. Definitely helped my style of singing and my gift. And yeah, that's kind of a bit about my background with how I came to MCBC. Yeah, just with moving over to Australia, and not knowing what that would look like. Moved over to play footy, played footy for a bit, and just got bored of footy. I know that's hard to hear if you're a big footy fan, but yeah, the culture was just different. Um, Australia's culture was very different, and yeah, I so not kind of knowing where I'd go and what I'd do after footy. It was kind of like, God, I've got to find a way, and I was able to pivot, and I started working as an RSA marshal, and then I seen someone playing gigs on the weekends at the pub, and yeah, I kind of asked him, hey man, how do I get into gigs? And he was like, oh, can you sing me a song? And passed me the guitar, and I was like, oh, okay. Played him a song. He was like, bro, what, man? And he was like, yeah, he was kind of gobsmacked. And I was like, oh man, if you want to start gigging with me, man, I'll be keen to do some gigs with you. And yeah, he kind of took me under his wing, taught me the whole business of muso, so how to invoice and how to get gigs and kind of how to work your set list. And I just feel God had always. I look back at my life, and not that I've lived, not that I'm talking like I'm old. I kind of look at my journey moving to Australia and all the things that I thought were mistakes. They were almost, they were all lessons. They were all like, I did wedding singing for like, yeah, like a good 10 years. And then later in life, I got into the gym, and I started lifting, and I started like lifting really heavy. And a friend of mine introduced me to strongman. I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, you can actually win competitions and trophies. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, you know, and for me as a big dude, I was like, man, I don't have abs, but I can lift a car, so that kind of that kind of excited me to kind of get back into training. Not that I was into training, but I was just like, oh man, I'm a bit overweight. Let's see if we can get strong and pack on some muscle, and yeah, from the singing, then getting into strongman and doing really really well, and you know I'd applied for like heaps of talent shows. So like The Voice, Australia's Got Talent, you know. But all those times that I got denied, I was like, man, what am I doing wrong? And I was just like, maybe, maybe another time. And it was probably the like fifth time, and I was like two-time Australia's Strongest Man, and I went for my audition, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like this is really cool. Like not only are you strong, you're like a really good singer too." And it was kind of like that. It's like I needed to learn all of that before I, kind of was given that opportunity. But at the same time, I feel like God was like, you know, you've got a good heart, Eddie. Like it was like my heart was in the right place. Like wasn't doing it to kind of, it was just I was doing things. I was doing two things that I loved, which was lifting and singing, and being able to showcase both my gifts was, was pretty awesome. I look at my family too. Like I have a beautiful wife, I have beautiful, healthy kids, and you know that's something I dreamed of as a young kid. Like having a young family and just you know, finding a wife who loves the Lord just as much as I do, and then you know, her parents love the Lord too and pray, and they pray so much for me and my wife, you know. And the thing is, like, I'm constantly doing things that, like, I'm traveling the world, doing strongman, and it's not a. I don't get paid to do it. You win prize money, but the whole time while you're training and eating and recovering, like, you've it's almost like an expensive hobby. So yeah, um, just like trusting in God with, I don't have a lot of work. Sometimes I'll have, a good amount of work, and then it'll, yeah, like it's just trusting God with, like, paycheck to paycheck almost, because I'm trying to do what I love, but also provide for my family and just finding that balance. But like the fact that God's brought me this far, you know, and I'm learning, and yeah, He's just always protecting me from negative things. You've rubbed shoulders with some pretty high profile people. How do you stay grounded? Um, Having an honest wife, having a wife that loves the Lord and can tell me, oh, maybe, maybe relax, relax on the. But I think the biggest thing for me was like just knowing who I am, knowing where I come from. Like I was born in Otahu. Like every time I had dinner at Arnold's house, and I was like, what? This was in LA, and I was like, man, this is unreal. Like, like everybody knows Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm just like, man, this is pretty cool. Like a kid from Papatoy, a kid from South Auckland, having dinner with Arnold Schwarzenegger, pretty surreal, you know. Um, and then like competing at the world stage, and it's like being invited, being there's only a small amount of guys who are invited to World's Strongest Man, and I'm one of them. Like it's yeah. So being the cool thing is like being a strongman and being I get to be me. Like I don't have to try and it's like God's opened up this door for me to hey, go and be the light, go and be the salt amongst you know these high profile people. And I think having a relationship with God and knowing you know I'm I'm serving. I'm not here to you know I'm here to serve God, not to become God. So I know my role, and I always and always want to be in His will. I never want to be out of His will. So that humbles me too. God's not going to give you everything, so you've got to do, yeah, you've got to seek first His kingdom, if that makes sense. And yeah, I feel like I'm called to a certain amount of a certain group of people. That could be everyone, but I feel like God's given me these gifts and these talents to be able to reach um, just different people. And I'm not saying you're different. I'm just saying there's people who've heard the word multiple times, and it only takes someone that looks like them, that does what they do, but they love the Lord, to kind of change their perspective on their outlook on life. And um, I've never been a preaching kind of person. I've always been like actions speak louder than words. And I've also like, I always try and, yeah, show through how I live my life, rather than let my talking do the talking, if that makes sense. I think it's great to be strong, but yeah, it doesn't really help your relationship with God, because you've got to let Him um, guide you. It's so easy to get in your flesh and be like, "No, I'm strong. I can do this," you know. But every day you've got to ask God for grace, because you need it every day. um, at the end of every day, it's like a reset button, and it's like, oh, here comes life, here comes struggles, here comes, um, it's just like a reset, So every day, you might be physically fit, but you've got to be ready, and you know, having a heart that's like, Lord, I can't do it without you. You know, nothing else can satisfy my heart. And I think having that kind of outlook definitely keeps me level-headed, knowing that it's one thing to be strong, but to be strong in the spirit is definitely the way, and that's a daily thing. I think the biggest one for me is the reps in the gym. So, um, you know, the more reps you do, the better you're going to get at it. So, reading your Bible, praying, um, praying for someone else, worshiping, um, like sharing the gospel with someone, um, having positive thoughts about yourself and others. And yeah, like there's things, you know, that we could do every day that can make our lives better. And yeah, just putting in the reps. And yeah, hopefully that answers the question. I think something that I do pretty easily, and then sometimes it's hard, is taking that leap of faith. It's so tough, so it's um, doing that thing that, you know, like stepping out and asking someone for something, when it's not in your nature to, it's so hard to ask for help. Um, or, you know, having tough conversations with people. I find like pressing into like actually using your faith. So I'm really good at, you know, taking a step of faith, but I'm also like, I'm very like after it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. So something I do, yeah, I find I do that. It's getting easier. Well, it's not easier to step out in faith, but I just know with everything I've been through, I look at my past victories and I'm like, man, God had me then, he's gonna have me now, and I'll do it and think about it later, do it and, you know, not worry later, but just like, man, God's had me in the past, he's got me now. And I've always had that kind of approach to it, and that's really grown my faith. So I hope that answers that question. I just want to encourage everyone watching that, yeah, be yourself, be who God's called you to be, and there are things in you that He's put in there for a reason. So don't count it out. Um, you know, God loves you, and He's called you for a purpose, that you don't know. And yeah, don't give up on Him. Don't give up on yourself. And yeah, hope this little message helped. Hopefully they'll cut it up because, yeah, a bit messy, but I hope you get the true message behind it.